Welcome to Multiple Offers, a real estate show with competing perspectives. Today we are talking about shifting gears.
Put that coffee down.
If you're good at something, never do it for free.
How'd you get the gig? Oh, you know, they were hiring. It was only a 2-week course.
I will sell this house today.
What are you, some kind of real estate agent?
Oh, he's a realtor. There is a difference somehow.
This is Multiple Offers, a real estate show.
All right, guys, it is episode 30. I feel like that's a milestone.
Nice.
It is a milestone. I just don't.
It's not really significant milestone, is it?
It's only like a birthday milestone. There's no cultural milestone.
There's no cultural milestone. No, and it's not. It doesn't tie in with like 12 or 24. Like It's not like a year or 2 years, but or 52 weeks.
Well, Dirty 30. So we invited the classiest guy we know in town.
Oh yeah, we'll get to that in a second. We got a special guest today. And yeah, today we're gonna go through some news. We're gonna talk about shifting gears, both in business and in our personal lives. We got some questions from the audience, but before we get into that, Jeremy, how you been?
Oh, that's you're really putting me on the spot here.
You said go to me first.
Not too much. I mean, amazing donaire. I think I had a donaire last week, but this week again, amazing donaire.
This week on multiple donaires.
This one was actually a shawarma, which is what they call the chicken donaires, if you didn't know. But more importantly, are we making a video? There's things on tables.
Upgrades.
Yeah, so for excellent radio, that's a Ricoh Theta 360 camera.
Nice. Heard of that.
And we are going to take a little bit of video with it today, but it can only handle 5 minutes, so we got to take the best.
And what's the protocol? Like, don't look it in the eye.
No, it's 360 degrees, so you're looking in the camera no matter where. Just pretend it's not there. Just
pretend it's not there. Okay.
Yeah,
it only does 5 minutes.
Unless you're streaming live, but that takes a whole gigantic setup. I actually use it for creating 360 tours, like Google Maps tours of my listings.
Yeah, cool.
This is an experiment with video today, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I'm looking right at the seam. I can barely see either lens.
I thought it was only on me.
just to make you feel uncomfortable.
Denny's waiting for his close-up.
So if somebody's listening to this on the old school way of just audio, headphones, home theater system, whatever.
They're only going to be listening to it on audio.
They don't get to watch this video?
We're going to use the video as a little teaser for the episode, which will have a link to listen to the full audio.
Okay.
Yeah, a little behind-the-scenes action.
That answers the questions that I had about the episode, so thanks. pass it on to Matt.
Okay, I'm not talking about lunch today. I want a little industry feedback on something. Reading a depreciation report recently, and what do you guys think about this? Because they seem to have no rules. So for our audience, we've talked about this. We've talked about depreciation reports, and it's...
I just have to say, is this a trap? Because Matt and I, Denny, I'm doing a deal with these guys right now. Is this the depreciation report?
It's from the listing that we're working on. Now, it's not getting in the way of our deal, but it's opening my eyes on the idea that there's no standard on these things. So for our audience, strata corporations typically do a depreciation report that talks about the expected service life of all the components of the building. But I'm reading this one, and essentially it's just a reserve fund study. It's spreadsheets. It just says this component, this age, this is what's left. There isn't a single physical inspection in the entire report.
Well, did you see when were you there in the office when they brought in the depreciation report guy?
I don't remember that.
Oh, okay. The office brought in a guy who works for GE and to talk about what they're looking for in a depreciation report. And the only thing I learned from that meeting is there are no rules. Like
I was there for that meeting.
Yeah, like I remember asking him, like
Genworth.
So, yeah, how do you qualify to do a depreciation report? And he was like, well, they have to say that they'll do it.
Yeah. You have to have some knowledge of building practices.
Yeah,
and things
like
that,
it's not like a home. It's harder to be a home inspector than to be the person who does the depreciation report.
There's no licensing or qualifications for any company that wants
not
to do
as
these
far as Genworth is concerned.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so these guys are just writing them up, and like I saw how much they paid for it. Not much, and they got what they paid for it. But there's no physical inspection.
I have no comments on this subject whatsoever.
So it's just a bit of an observation. And then the other is that it omitted two critical components of the building. The report does not include the plumbing system or the parquet membrane. Just not on there.
Because you can't see it.
Right. Now, you do have the plumbing system.
Because they didn't do an inspection. They didn't even show up to the building.
We assume you
I'm
have
totally getting
one.
into negotiation mode because I'm like, Matt, they did their pipes.
No, I know, and that's why I don't want to pin it on the building. It's just the process,
Yeah,
right? It's just really strange. As a consumer, they have no idea that these elements were omitted from the report. They don't know that this report maybe should have had a physical inspection or it shouldn't. It's the Wild West. You do it however you want. So
Yeah.
it's just kind of crazy.
And in Jeff's defense, it's a very this anonymous building we're talking about. It's a very small strata.
It is. It's
It's
just
20
yeah.
people or so. Something.
It was just a bit of it was more just eye opening to realize there is absolutely no standard. That's all.
Fun facts.
Well, Jeff, why don't you tell us what's going on with you so we can introduce our guest?
Okay. Well, before I get into who Denny is, I've got a total real estate nail biter going on right now. So for about a month, I've had an accepted offer subject to sale on a house in White Rock, and the seller is selling their house in Toronto. On Saturday, we got the time clause activated. Ooh. So for our listeners who may not know, when you have a subject to sale, usually there's a condition in there that says if they can accept another offer and you have X amount of hours to get your place sold or bow out. So ours is 72 hours. But I did put in the subject to sale business hours.
Ooh, sneak attack.
So it was a long weekend. We got it on Saturday. Technically, we have till Friday.
Whoa.
They accepted an offer. Now we're waiting on subjects. And subject removal is the same night that we've got to actually do our removal or bow out. So it's so
Did you
completely
negotiate
down
your
to the
offer that
wire.
like subject removal is by like 10 p.m. So just so you have time
No,
to do the paperwork?
I had no idea. I called them and I'm like, sorry guys, I got bad news. And they're like, it's okay, we accepted an offer. When do we have to have this done by? I told them, they're like, that's the same time. so I'm on pins and needles.
You're working late that night.
And it's like the nicest house in White Rock, like one of those totally super modern ones.
Oh, yeah, we talked about this on the show.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, the perfect inspection.
Yeah,
episode 26.
It's the
perfect home.
It's the perfect home.
And
so.
Jared was not correct in saying episode 26.
Yeah, Jared, don't try to be Matt.
How did you get 72 business hours accepted?
Because I'm a badass.
We have a lot of time.
It's always changed, usually.
Have you ever tried to do an unconditional offer?
I've tried to do an unconditional, like no time clause.
Gets crossed out.
Only,
or no, but in the time clause, say,
I've
once
tried
accepted
that
an unconditional offer.
But I see what you're saying.
They
So
have to
you're
clear
saying
their
that
subjects.
the buyer. No, I have never tried that. Dave in our office likes that move, and I think it's a good one.
Because most people don't read through it
Yeah,
in detail.
yeah, totally.
Like it sounds like your listing agent didn't.
I think he was okay. Part of our strategy to getting it accepted was giving them a pretty good price.
Okay.
So I think they were willing to make some concessions for us, which was what we were hoping. So if anybody is wondering, the person I'm talking to is Denny Dumas. Denny is a realtor in New West. He is one half of the Garbett Dumas team. Well, actually, you guys are a bit of an army now, so I guess one half of. But you guys run the show. Denny's been in the industry for 4.5 years, and in that time, they have grown the business from a $30 million a year business in 2014 to a $120 million business in 2017. That's 162 ends. I feel like I could stop right there, and that would be good enough. But on top of being a rock star in the real estate industry, Denny is obsessed with sports. He's fiercely competitive. You were one of six.
One of 6 kids. Yeah.
One of 6 kids.
The second youngest.
Also very interested in.
You had to fight for your food.
Oh yeah, there you go. Also very interested in golf. The Seahawks, which my dad would appreciate, and craft beer and whiskey, which I'm sure here's a little teaser. We're gonna probably talk about that a little later in the episode.
I knew I liked your dad.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Dad's a huge Seahawks fan. Denny, welcome to the show.
Going to the game tomorrow, actually.
Nice.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So what's been going on with you?
Not a whole lot. Lots of business changes in the last year. Like you said, our team's growing. We now are 6 realtors and
8?
2 assistants. Yeah.
Wow.
And looking to probably bring on one more for the new year. Yeah, things are going well. We have a lot of exciting opportunities coming up. Jamie and I, so my business partner James Garbett and I are doing a big reno and a build in the next year as well. So
As if things weren't busy enough.
Right.
Yeah, we tend to take on more stress than we can handle.
Do you make any of the other guys that are working with you guys, do you make them swing hammers or go on the site? If it's a slow day, are they
Adam,
on the
actually,
site?
the new guy, Adam just got his license in June this year, I believe.
Yeah.
And he said he would literally do anything. So he dug out a trench for us at the house to do new drain tile. No, I'm just kidding. He probably would have done it.
Hey, you got a tour booked on Thursday there, Adam? No, oh, you're available? Cool, man. All right, yeah, just meet us at the house. Yeah, no, don't wear your nice shoes.
Here's a shovel. Yeah.
Full service.
So, I mean, Denny, we know you because you're a realtor. We engage with each other in the real estate world, but today it's not going to be all real estate. We're a real estate show, but we're going to kind of transition this to tie in with your show that you've got going on, right?
it.
Yeah, so
Denny has a show?
Denny's got a show.
Hey, it's catching on.
What's Denny's show, Matt?
If I got this right, Zero to Here.
That's right.
So
Great name.
So Denny's launched his podcast, which it didn't launch too long ago. Is that right?
I want to say 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, so that's
recent.
pretty fresh. Yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your show, and then we're going to get into our show.
Absolutely. The show came about for a few reasons. One, just gaining a little bit of traction in this industry. I started getting reached out to by new agents in the industry, just asking what the first year was like, how to gain traction, how to get off the ground. I really enjoyed those conversations, and through just kind of sharing my experience, I felt like I had some valuable things to offer. And so the next level for me was, how do I scale that information rather than one-on-one coffee meetings? It was it's very time consuming. Yeah. And I never say no to them because I get a lot out of them too.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to help.
Yeah, I mean, I got to say that too with our show. Like, I was talking to my wife yesterday. We learn a lot from doing each episode.
I think one of the best ways to learn something is to teach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And same kind of thing with the team growing is that we've got a few newer agents on our team now that aren't as experienced, haven't done as many deals. And one of them made this comment to me a month into being on the team. He said something like, you have so much information in your head. How do I get it out of you? And again, that's just kind of going back
Cambo?
to scaling. No, it wasn't.
Hi, Sean Cambo. Cambo, who is on Denny's team, used to be in our office long time ago. Great guy.
Mm-hmm.
Cool, man.
Good
All
guy.
right.
He comes from a background of building too, so he kind of adds a new element to our team.
Nice.
So before we get into the news, Matt, I did just want to mention something totally off topic. So, Denny, I listened to a few episodes of your show.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you mentioned in your show is your dream guests list.
Absolutely.
Ryan, is it Searhart?
Sirhant.
How do I say that? I'm
Sirhant.
bad with names. Okay. Do you know he's coming to Vancouver?
I don't think I'm ready for him.
Okay. Because it was so weird. I listened to your episode.
I will email him.
And
I've
then-
emailed him before, and he's responded.
Well, so Adam Lloyd and Sean Zubor, Adam Lloyd and Sean Zubor from Stonehouse.
Adam Zubor.
They're bringing him here. He's coming to Vancouver. So I figure you do have a shot.
There's an opportunity.
Yeah. Anyway, I was just excited because literally I listened to your episode and then saw Sean's post on Facebook. I was like, that's weird.
What are they bringing her for?
He's giving a real estate talk.
Okay.
But I mean, if he talks to those guys, he should probably talk to you too.
I'll send him an email.
Just calling everyone out today.
So I think Matt's got some news for us.
Yeah, let's do a little quick news segment.
Okay.
I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
I got a news flash for you, Walter Cronkite.
I am enlightened.
Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
This is Multiple Offers, a real estate show.
News today. We're going to keep it quick because we want to have lots of time here with our guest, Denny. But I saw this headline. I'm curious what you guys think about it. It came from the Vancouver Courier, and I'm not familiar with this website. You guys familiar with Joway.com?
No. Joway?
Jowai.
I've never heard of it.
So apparently it's a huge sort of international global thing, and a ton of Chinese real estate buyers use it as their search tool.
For real estate?
For real estate. So it's a massive search tool, and by just tracking their search habits, it gives them an indication of what's going on. And they're saying that their findings are that for July to September of 2018, the searches by Chinese in China for Vancouver real estate are higher than it was in early 2017.
Weird.
Interesting.
So they're like so one, we know that the interest is there, and they say usually according to their sort of data, this translates into transactions. It would be for the beginning of 2019. The other interesting finding they said is that there's usually this stereotype that the Chinese are coming to spend a ton of money. They said if they average out the search price range, it's $831,000.
Wow.
Did it have any information? Are they searching in Vancouver, or are they looking out into the suburbs?
I can't say, and it just said Vancouver.
Why don't you know?
CEO is quoted in the article, Jeff. You can call her. My question to you is, it's been, now it's almost 2 years since the foreign buyer tax. Does time heal all wounds?
Yes.
With the public? I think the public.
Not the public, the Chinese.
The Chinese.
Right?
Oh. The massive buying had actually cooled off quite a bit before they even introduced the tax.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's something that kind of really gets glossed over a lot of the times, is like the caravans of busloads of buyers coming from overseas. Those days were done before
it was, but then we also know that the Chinese buyers that did want to engage in the Canadian market took their money to Montreal and Toronto and caused some pretty big booms there after we implemented our foreign buyer tax.
Even just outside of the Lower Mainland.
Yeah, so they felt a little bit insulted and moved along, and I'm generalizing. It doesn't apply to every single one of them, but there was a sentiment there that it's okay, you don't want our money, and I'm getting the impression now that just enough time has gone by that's in the past now. They're just looking at their own personal situation. They see Vancouver's probably a good spot to put our money.
I know they were talking about it. Did Toronto end up introducing their own foreign buyer tax?
Yeah, they did.
They did, right?
I was going to say other countries are coming up. Other major cities around the world are coming up with their own solutions to this sort of perceived problem that they're having. But there's been, like, only local owners can buy resale. I've heard of that in Australia, I think it is. Someone can quote me if I'm wrong. Let me know if I'm wrong. But
that's what I've heard as well.
So,
maybe from you.
Not fact, Matt.
I'm not an expert in the Chinese mindset.
None of us are.
It is not our demographic, although I would like to learn Mandarin.
Sure, add it to the
Goal
list.
for 2019, yeah. I just don't think they care.
About the tax?
Yeah. I don't think they care. A lot of local people that I've talked to who work with Chinese buyers, a lot of them are just trying to get money out of China. And so they don't care if they're paying an extra 15 or 20%, especially when you look at the currency rates comparatively to the States. Yeah. They're still saving 15% by buying in Vancouver comparatively
still looking
across the border.
As a bargain, right?
Yeah.
Agree with that 100%. I definitely think there was an element of just insult.
Yeah.
When the tax was implemented, where there's just a little bit of hesitation. I think there's a combination of a number of things. There's a lot of economic changes in China right now, and maybe just enough time has passed that they're interested. So we'll see if their projections play out in early 2019, if all of these searches turn into transactions. Because they were quite forthcoming in the article. They said, hey, look, these are just searches. So we don't know what
they're
kind
all
of
just
deals.
window shopping.
So that's the news for today. Something to keep an eye on. Let's talk about the shift.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
You decide your own level of involvement.
Well, I guess this is a case where we'll have to agree to disagree.
I don't agree to that.
Neither do I.
Wrong.
National debt.
Wrong.
You're an advocate.
Wrong. With that money, lost one.
Very nice words, but happens to be wrong.
You're listening to Multiple Offers, a real estate show.
Having you on the show, Denny, we thought it was a good opportunity because your show has a lot to do with self-growth, and I know it's a bit of a personal obsession of yours and something that we on the show are interested in as well. Before we get into shifts, both professional and personal, I just wanted to ask you, so coming from the business on day one into a $30 million a year business, to doing 163 ends. Like, how does that happen? like that's a insane. And I mean, obviously, before you got on there, James was doing very well. I'm not here saying, oh man, James should be so lucky that you came, but you guys have really built something quite special. What do you attribute that to?
I'll never overlook the opportunity that I was given. It's a very unique one, and I know a lot of others in our industry will never have an opportunity like that. So I feel very grateful that I was given this phenomenal opportunity to walk into. It's hard to say, man. Like, I work my ass off. I work a ton of hours, especially early on in my career. It was like 100+ hour weeks every week for 2 years. And
so when you joined, was it just James, Rosa, and then
I was number 3.
You're number 3. Yeah.
I don't know. I think I learned a lot of dealing with adversity just through sport, and it carried over into the real estate world. But in terms of learning, it was just like, I was not prepared for this industry at all. I was not financially prepared. I was not prepared in terms of what it actually takes to be
but you did a
knowledgeable
course.
realtor.
You passed a test.
Have you listened? I do like a little 15-minute mini podcast on my first year in real estate, and I talk about the course, which is just ridiculous.
Well, and we didn't set you up for this, but you're transitioning into where we kind of wanted to go at the start beautifully. Yeah.
For any of you that don't know out there, to get a real estate license, it's changed a little bit now. I know there's a little bit of an applied course that happens after the exam, but for me, 4.5 years ago, it was 20 assignments. You can hand in 2 a week, so it took 10 weeks to get through that, and then you write an exam, and 2.5 months you have a real estate license.
And they gave you a year too, didn't they?
They give you a year to do
You have a
it.
year
to finish those 20 assignments.
Yeah. They've changed it now that the fastest you're allowed to do it, I think, is 6 months.
Is that right?
They force you to slow down. There's a minimum time now.
Okay.
Yeah, 6 months might be longer.
When all these companies, these like tutoring companies, showed up to start helping people, right? Like,
they were fast tracking
6 weeks to bang it out.
Yeah. So that's kind of crazy. But I mean, that's where people take this leap of faith, like Denny did, like a lot of us have done, to get into this industry. And people can do it in all sorts of different businesses and industries. And there's the way to just sort of knock on the door, take your test, and walk through the door, and now you're in.
Yeah.
But how do you actually progress and become successful? I mean, first you have to have the courage to do it, but then you have to know how to find a way, right? So we've talked about how it started out well for you. I started in a similar situation. We talked about it. We talked about how our career started early in our series. People can listen to that. And our
what
team
episode,
dynamics.
Matt?
Episode 1 is all of our origin stories are in episode 1. We also have our team dynamics in episode 18.
I feel like I could have guessed that one.
You and me could have figured that one out.
Yeah, but we talk about sort of who we learned from and how we built how our teams function, all the rest of it in episode 18 as well. But we're going to talk more about that today because there's a lot that goes into this, and I'm really curious to just hear from the table about what it's like, and if our listeners are listening, should I be trying to get into real estate? Should I take that leap of faith? Am I in a different business or industry, and I'm just not happy where I am, and I need to make a change? I think that's kind of what your show is about, right, Denny? A little bit?
Yeah, it's more about exposing the not so glamorous versions of entrepreneurship. So people see entrepreneurs on social media with fancy cars and gold watches.
It's so cool to be an entrepreneur right now.
Yeah. But it is, though, right? It's glorified because of social media. So it's more just exposing the tough times. And for me, I learned best by chatting with other people that have gone through the same kind of stuff that I have and learning from their experiences, chatting about how they get over adversity, what's going through their mind mentally when they're faced with big challenges. And so that's kind of what my show's about.
Well, why don't before we start talking about sort of shifting in the right direction, you talked about the course and how ill prepared you are. Mm-hmm. Like, what are the things that prepare us to fail through entrepreneurship? And specifically for me, I'm thinking about real estate. I think about the course 100% did. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of my jobs to begin with did, because when you get into real estate, I think one of the hardest things is people think about like, okay, well, I show up at 9, I do my work till 5, and then I go home for the day and I start over again the very next day. And it's not the right mentality in the slightest. And all our like school, everything. What are your guys' thoughts on all that?
I think the biggest obstacle is just your mind. Like you talk about the non-glamorous side is just the personal obstacle of I'm going to get my license. I got to get my first BMW. What kind of BMW am I going to get? I'm going to start like it's just I'm going to have to get a different investment account because of all the paychecks that are going to be running, rolling in, which couldn't be any further from the truth. I imagine. I mean, I've never owned another business, so I imagine it's similar with other business owners that. But maybe not the idea that it's going to be easy. Whereas I feel like there's a misconception with real estate that it's an easy job for anyone who's never done it before.
Oh yeah, it's easy is totally one of the biggest misconceptions. It's so easy. Denny, what'd you do in a past life?
But then you look at industry averages, and what's the industry average? 6 deals a year?
I think that might be high.
That sounds high.
So maybe less than 6 deals.
Anyway. I think
Anyway.
it's probably 6, but when they pull the top 10%, they pull out anybody who does 0 to 2 from the number before they even can calculate it. So
I
yeah,
think I was looking it up recently, and there's a little over 15,000 agents in Greater Vancouver now, and half of them don't do a deal a year.
Yeah.
So they cut it down to 7,000 or 7,500, and I think from that the average is doing 6 deals a year, which is really not making much of a living.
No,
I don't even know if you're surviving on.
No, and for a lot of them, it
60
actually isn't intended to be
just an extra,
a real source of income. It's just supplementary.
Yeah.
My wife works, and so I've just got this real estate license, and if my friend calls, I do a deal for them. I've met people like that, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, no, my friend down the street. So, I mean, that's how some people do it as a supplementary thing. But other people take it on because they want it to be a real life-changing experience for them, right?
Sure.
And before the show, we're talking about this stuff, about how people can come from all sorts of different backgrounds and be unhappy or unfulfilled in wherever they are in life. Maybe it's personal or professional, and they just want to make this shift, right? That's why I'm calling the episode The Shift. But it takes something internally to do that. And, I'm not quite sure exactly what it is or where they need to find that fire to do it, because there's a lot of courage, there's a lot of risk. I'm stuck in the middle right here, not knowing how to help people make this shift.
Well, and just to be clear, Matt, you are not saying everybody get into real estate.
No.
That's not the intention of the episode. We don't want 15,000 more new realtors.
No, but I want people listening to come out of this episode and at least feel inspired that if there's something that's not right in their world right now, to hear something that one of the four of us says, to say, this is a way I can, make some little improvement to put myself on more the path that I think I see myself being on for the next little while.
Mm-hmm. That was kind of my story, is that I out of university, I was working for my dad. He ran sports bars and liquor stores.
Right.
I knew it wasn't something I wanted to do long term. Knew I always wanted to work for myself. Just wasn't really sure the avenue that I wanted to take. And when I was 23, I want to say, he had some financial trouble, lost all the businesses. So it kind of kicked me in the butt to do something different. And got a job at a bank, which was worked at RBC for 5 months, and it was probably the worst 5 months of my life.
Like, were you a teller, or what were you doing at the bank? Yeah.
Super exciting.
Yeah.
I was paying people's hydro bills.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can do this on the internet, but I'm happy I have a job.
They like coming into the bank. I don't know. So I was there for 5 months, and 3 months in, I knew I couldn't last very long. Signed up for the real estate course. Quit the job before I even took the exam. Took the exam, luckily passed, and literally was all in.
Why did you choose real estate?
So my connection with my partner James, I bought a condo when I was 21 with him. Had picked his brain a ton as we were looking for places, asking him a ton of questions about the industry. I knew I liked that industry. I knew I liked the opportunities within the industry. Just wasn't ready at 21 years old to make that jump. And so a few years later, when I was working at the bank, signed up for the course, called him and said, any advice to get started? And that was kind of it. He said at the time he was really busy, so he needed some help, and he said, follow me around for 6 months. If you don't like it, go off on your own. If you do, then maybe we can work together.
Nice.
That's cool. I mean, it leads right into my question I have written down that I wanted to ask. Because we're talking about if people are going to take this leap of faith and make a shift, What support does someone need to do that? So we got into real estate, but you've got somebody who's an electrician. He's working for another company, but he's thinking, I want to go get my own van and be my own guy and find my own clients and do all that. Or, I love, a certain segment, a little niche part of hard goods, and I want to open a little retail shop and go and do it on my own. I've been a retail manager for a while, right? What support should these people have to make a shift into any of these businesses, right? You had James there, right? You had somebody to talk to and kind of get you in. I went through a similar situation. Jeff, you had Dad.
I grew up around real estate, yeah.
Right? So if someone's thinking of making a move
Jeremy
like
tried
this,
to do it on his own.
I can advocate
like an idiot.
I can advocate for anybody who's thinking of just getting in and again, like I mentioned, it's easy, get your license. It's your printing money. Is mentor, like find a mentor, shadow somebody, even before you even take the license, Does
that mentor have to be in the industry?
Yeah,
I think so.
For real, we're talking about real estate?
Anything.
Well, regardless of a real estate, yeah.
Regardless.
I think so. I think you will just pick up on little things, and I think it gives you an opportunity to find out if you actually are going to enjoy that industry or not.
Yeah.
Whether it's a hardware store, like your example, go follow someone around for free for a month and see how their business runs, and decide if you like that industry.
I'm a full hands-on learner, so textbooks, things like that, not helpful. YouTube, awesome. But if I want to open a restaurant, probably a good idea to go work in a restaurant for a while, get to know some of the ins and outs. I don't think that's going to be pretty crucial.
Well, I think about your story with Keith Corney's, Jer, about how you were in the office spending so many hours thinking you were working.
Yeah, I was at
but just not doing the right things.
I was at a different office before doing that.
Yeah,
that same thing too. For me, the shift was, okay, this isn't working. I wanted to narrow my market. I was in Coquitlam before. And I don't blame the brokerages. There's lots of different brokerages, different models out there. Part of joining our office was putting me around people that were helpful. So that was huge. But yeah, I mean, my shift was to let's just make the pond a little bit smaller so I could focus on different inventory. But then having a guy like Keith that's sort of holding you accountable to doing the right things. But even before, because I think before Keith I was with Matt and Jerry.
Yeah.
I can't remember the timeline now.
New West Guys 1.0.
Hard to remember, yeah.
But it was what I learned when I was working with our old business partner, Matt. Matt was with him for a long time, but he's retired now. But the amount of knowledge that I learned just being in that office and in that room for a year was huge, and a huge part of how the agent I am today. I would never it's everyone's kind of you're on your own when you get your license. If you join a brokerage, you don't have you don't have a lot of brokerages. You don't even need to show up to the office. It doesn't matter, right?
That's one of the things for me is that I feel like my progression was very quick because of being teamed up with someone like Jamie. So in my first year, I did 17 deals, but I saw 65.
That's right. Yeah.
And so that's one of the advantages of being on a team like ours is that Lucas, for example, on our team did 11 deals by himself in a year and a half. And he's been with us for 6 months now, has done 35 deals, but he's seen over 100.
Right.
So you're just learning that much quicker because you're seeing so much more.
Just cramming in those hours.
Yeah.
Like if it takes 10,000 hours to master something, you're just accelerating the entire process.
For sure.
So you're learning that from a mentor, from people who look over you in that sense. And I feel like we're in a generation now where that's very acceptable. And within industry, if you go and ask for help, essentially from a competitor, you're actually going to get some help. But I feel like 15, 20 years ago, that didn't work. You go knocking on their door asking for help from anybody else, and they're not helping you out. There's no sharing and collaboration. It was cutthroat. It was every man for himself. And that's, I think, a really big change in the way business is done now.
In real estate?
In any business.
In anything.
Yeah.
Any business. Like I got a good friend who started one of those junk removal companies. And, it's like, well, how can you be different with junk removal? But he was, and he's growing. He's opening franchises across North America. And he went in and had a meeting with the CEO of 1-800-GOT-JUNK. He's like, yeah, man, let's talk about it. Let's share ideas. I'm curious what you're doing. Tell me what you're doing. I'll tell you what I do.
I wonder if that's actually changed or just people's willingness to say that they're getting help has changed. Because when Dad started in the business, which was like 40 years ago, Sheila Francis totally took him under her wing and taught him a ton of stuff. I have a feeling that there were lots of people getting help, but maybe the culture was to pretend you did it on your own, even
that might be a good point.
The self-made man was such an important idea.
Well, it was, and that's the thing. That's definitely what I grew up with, and I was too proud to ask for help. That was my biggest failing in my 20s, is I thought I was supposed to be a self-made man.
Right.
If anybody can take anything away from me today, it's don't try to do it by yourself.
That's one thing I've never had an issue with. I ask a ton of questions, and I've never felt awkward or uncomfortable looking for more.
So where do you think that started? The willingness to just blurt it out.
I think it just kind of goes back to sport for me and failing over and over and learning to not really care what the perception of me for other people
Did
was.
you have good coaches when you were in sports?
Yeah, I'd say I had a few.
Okay. The only reason why I say that, I played a ton of sports growing up as well, but I feel like we had very different experiences.
Okay.
I had a lot of failings in sport, but I don't think I had good coaches. Now, they cared and they tried, but they didn't know enough. And when I looked back on what I did in my youth in sport and then what I knew in my 20s, I was like, wow, I wasn't taught so much of what I should have known. And where I was failing, nobody stopped and said, here, this is what you can do to improve. I never had the courage to ask for help, though.
Right.
Just try to do it myself.
I played at a pretty high level in basketball, so I was surrounded by some good coaches. Like provincial team coaches were pretty top-notch guys. Played in the States for a year, played at UBC for a year. So you're surrounded by
so you've got good coaches.
The idea of a mentor in sport is totally not a weird concept either, right?
No.
Like there's always a coach. There's always somebody when you're learning any sort of sport, you go to get taught, right? The first thing you do when you learn to golf, you don't just try to swing the ball and figure out how to hit it. You go and take some golf lessons, and somebody makes you putt for 8 hours, and then you hate golf.
Well, there is a reason.
Some baggage there.
I just wanted to go home.
Just want to play video games, Dad.
My end of love affair with golf was I was like 6, and Dad would make me golf every day. And I remember he pulled up, and I asked him, I'm like, hey, Dad, who's the best golfer here? And he's like, that kid. And I'm pretty sure he pointed at Wes Goss.
I think you're going to talk about like your first time in jail when you just like go for whoever's the best, go and take them out.
Really? That's where you thought that was going? So anyway, golf was a had to do activity, and nobody likes had to do activities.
No, I think to your point though, on the analogy there, though, is that sport, you go to practice. Like there's a part of scheduling sports is scheduling practice. Yeah. You don't just show up to the games. That's probably pretty applicable to everything we do. Is you can't just assume you can just roll into the game and be like, bam, got this, guys.
I think there are a lot of realtors who just roll into the game.
Definitely.
Like if the listing presentation or the negotiation is the game, there is a ton of, well, I'll learn it as I go. Away I'll go. We were talking earlier about Jer being a time waster. And
is that what we really? It wasn't being time efficient, not wasting time.
What do you guys think are the activities that most new realtors who don't find somebody to teach them waste?
Too much social media time.
Oh, Jer's baiting Denny now.
No, I'm not. I'm looking at you.
Depends how you use social media.
And I think that's key because a lot of people you can spend a lot of time on it. I'm advertising, I'm getting my brand out there, but you're really kind of just spinning your wheels a bit and maybe not doing it the most effectively.
Even just for me, like I post probably 6 to 15 times a day, whether it's stories or actual posts, and I'm probably on there for 15 minutes. Like I'm not spending time scrolling. Mm-hmm. I'm not really consuming other people's content. It's more just like sharing your story, right?
Yeah.
So like today, show up, take a quick video, takes 30 seconds and it's up.
Right.
Just like sharing your story, and people respond to it because you're like doing something all the time.
So that's you doing something. I think the trap Jer's talking about is that
you're getting consumed by content.
The new person, yeah
totally. The one thing for me that I never really got into, I started with Sutton, and I was at the office a couple times a week.
Yeah.
And I felt like it was just anyone there was there to waste their time. but they thought that they were working because they're in an office environment. But literally, they're just wasting your time. So I stopped
to
going
work.
to the office. Yeah,
There's a weird balance there too, though, because I totally hear what you're saying, and also, especially when you're new, talking like I have learned more from having lunch with these two guys and a couple other people at the office on a regular basis, just sharing. Oh, this is what I'm going through. Like there's definitely value in spending time talking to realtors. But how do you balance that with, okay, now we're just spending the whole day and I'm not getting anything done. And
for sure.
I'm, it's 2:00 and I'm bugging Matt because me and Jer
it's beer time.
Having beer.
Hey, it's 2:00.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
But I think you need to pick the individuals that you're talking with.
Yes.
Not just showing up at an office and having people come talk to me. Because I was like couple months into the industry, I couldn't afford Wi-Fi, so I had to go somewhere with Wi-Fi. I'm serious. But people would come up to me and be like, "Hey, you guys are so good on social media. Can you help me with social media?" No. I can't. I have things to do. And so I just started going to Starbucks so that people wouldn't bug me.
Right.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, can we try to broaden this to entrepreneurs in any business, right? You start, you think you're doing the work, you're showing up at your shop every day or your desk or your home office or whatever it is. What can you do to kind of narrow down and make sure you're on point?
I think people spend so much time worrying about their brand at the start. Like, I've got to get the perfect sign, and the website has to be amazing, and the photos have to be amazing, and you're spending all of this money on things.
Perfection's a bit of a trap.
Yeah, and I mean,
just do it.
All of that should be amazing. But at the start, I feel like you need to be focused on delivering a really good service and getting your name out there. And that doesn't mean having the perfect business card, right? And spending an entire day picking out which font you're going to use on your business card.
Well, yeah, and I think that probably applies to everything, is you've got to go out and do the work and get the clients. And you've got to be out there and visible and working.
Yeah.
I think we can all get a little bit trapped in building some pretty marketing pieces because we all feel like, with a little design work here and there and contributing, I'm doing something, I'm making, but if you spend half your week doing that, you have not talked to enough clients or potential clients.
Well, whenever my business is suffering, I get back to the real basics, which for me is how many appointments can I book this week? Mm-hmm. And not appointments with the designer, but appointments with clients.
Well, it even goes to the guy who took a chance and bought his own van and wants to be his own electrician.
Totally.
He knows how to wire a house,
Yeah.
top to bottom, but he needs a house to wire.
The hardest part of any industry is lead gen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think at the beginning, it's important to be putting yourself in as many uncomfortable situations in front of people as possible. So in our industry, that's doing as many open houses as you can every weekend. During the week, you're finding a prospecting tool that you're not necessarily that you like because they're not fun, but finding something that you can do on a repetitive
that you
basis.
Can stomach.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just putting yourself in front of as many people as you can.
Yeah.
Where do you got to dig to find the courage to do that? What's the system? What's the method? You got any advice?
For me, it was necessity. For me, it was trying to afford Wi-Fi.
How's he going to post 15 times a day if he doesn't have Wi-Fi?
That was the beginning, but here we are now, and it's clear that you're a hungry guy. You're out there. You want more. You want to continually improve, right? So where does that motivation come from? Where you go like, okay, I got to have some tough conversations, or I got to do something that's the uncomfortable part, but I got to do it. Is it that for our listeners, do I schedule this 3 days a week? Do I schedule it 7 days a week? Do I not schedule it, but I make sure that I check that box, at certain times, or do I, have 3 cups of coffee and just start dialing the phone?
Yeah. So where does the motivation come from?
How do you get yourself to do the tough tasks every week? Yeah. What's the plan?
For me, it's just big goals. So I feel like if I'm not doing something I describe it as this constant desire for growth in personal and business life. So regardless of where I am now, I think I can continue to get better. And I feel like I'm a long way away from where I'm going to be. And so for me, it's just some big goals and feeling like I'm not where I want to be.
What's an example of a personal goal?
Fitness. Gotten really into it in the last couple of years. Lost 30 pounds. Feel spectacular compared to...
You lost 30 pounds?
Yeah.
I would not have guessed you had 30 pounds to lose. Did you recently put on 30 pounds and then lose 30 pounds?
Yeah. So in my first 2 years in real estate, I was like 100% real estate, everything, all day, every day.
It's really easy to let health go out the window in real estate.
And that's what I did. I ate poorly. I exercised once a month, maybe.
Yeah.
And
you're eating donaires every day.
Gained a lot of weight. Felt shitty in my body, and like it was at the point where I'd sit down in the car and my underwear flap would fold over, and I'm like, "What is this?
What is happening here? I need new underwear." And you guys were your office is beside a brewery too, which probably didn't help.
That is correct. Yes.
Partially owned by your partner, so Jamie's to blame for.
I can't blame Jamie for the free beer. But I don't know what the switch was. It was just I wasn't happy with how I felt, so I need to work out every day. And now I've worked out every day for almost 2 years and feel fantastic. I feel back to like university in shape.
Are you still setting new health goals?
It's more just maintenance now.
Yeah.
And I kind of fell in love with what exercise does for me mentally. And so it's like if I don't exercise in a day, I feel anxious, like I feel like I need to be doing something.
Right.
So now it's more almost an addiction.
I'm in the exact same place. I know you can't really tell looking at me, but I'm the same way where I was having a tough time getting the fitness in all the time that I wanted. And I went to, we talked about this on the show when Keith was on episode 9, where I had a goal of every second day, make sure I exercise every second day, never let 2 days go by. Yeah. And it kind of locked me in. And once I did that, a month into every second day, it had to be every day for the exact same reason. I come out of it with just this energy.
Once you hit 30 in a row?
Like 1 month of not missing 2 days.
I see what you mean.
I would now I exercise every single day, and I love it. I need it. I want it because I feel better. And the days that I don't exercise, I got less in every capacity. So I totally hear what you're saying. Yeah, it's totally addicting.
I'm trying to absorb your energy right now. I really relate to you get into this business, and it's so all consuming, and it's really easy. The thing I struggle with the most is planning, because all of a sudden a couple appointments pop up that you weren't expecting, and I was going to pop home for lunch, but now it's 9 o'clock and I haven't been home yet and I'm starving, and oh man, Dairy Queen looks good on the way home.
and your gym closed.
Oh,
that's also a problem.
I was so upset. So I decided yesterday that I'm making a change. I'm
healthy Jeff.
I'm
now on.
I'm healthy Jeff. So and I have 2 kids. They're 5 and 2. So when they're up, there's not a whole lot going on. They take a lot of energy, and rightfully so. I'm away so much that Rach just kind of needs a break. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start getting up at 5 a.m. and I'm going to go do something healthy. So I got up at 5 a.m. I slept in my workout clothes so that it would be so easy to I just get out of bed and walk to the gym. I got there.
And you didn't have a fob because Denny didn't give you one.
Oh, for those of listeners who are wondering what Matt's talking about, Denny was the listing agent on the townhouse I bought, but that was over a year ago. No.
Okay.
The boiler house was closed. They had a big sewage flood or something, and I hadn't heard about it yet. And I get there, and there's just this big closed sign. I'm like, oh.
So you waited a half an hour.
Well,
when is this thing opening?
Well, at first I thought maybe I'm too early, but no, it was just closed. So I went for a walk around Victoria Hill, but it was a bit of a gut.
So the lessons here are there's going to be obstacles.
Sure, yeah,
for getting to your goals. Don't let it ruin your day.
When I think if you want to find the courage to do the things that you think can really change your life, it's to find some sort of consistency or model that allows you to do it, right? And we've gone back to this constantly. Fitness for me is always the analogy that I can apply to the business, right? It has to feel a bit routine, then it's easy to do it. You let 3 or 4 or 5 days go by where you haven't made a difficult phone call, and it's tough to pick it up and make that next call.
Which is funny because I go the other way right now. I'm like, I make calls that I'm terrified of every day. I can spend half an hour and go to the gym or decide to eat a little bit.
But because
better.
You do them every day, those calls are not so difficult.
Totally.
But if you let it slide for 5 days, kind of getting back into that groove, whatever, that first call, that first workout, whatever it is, it's a little harder. So I'm just thinking for the people who want to, just make a little bit of a change, it's to find some kind of consistency that allows you to just do it repetitively, and it doesn't feel so intimidating, right? There's so many things we do in our lives that are intimidating. We can just find a way to make that one most important thing a little less intimidating. We'll get it done more.
I bring it back to mindset too, though, in that I always think about the alternative. And with something as, let's use fitness as an example, I don't like the alternative. I've seen what it was 2 years ago.
Guys,
and I really don't want to go back.
I like how immediate the feedback loop is almost, though, right?
For me,
like when you're healthy, if
Yeah.
it were to ever stop, if like to think of the alternative,
Yeah.
it's very quick. You realize how you're sliding back into where you don't want to be.
Definitely.
Underwear flap folding down guy.
It was disgusting.
Next thing you know, you can't see your feet, and then you got a problem.
You touched on something a little earlier, Denny, where you're talking about constantly growing and improving.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to bring this as sort of another element to our conversation is education, right? So if people want to make a shift in their personal or professional life, we talked about the real estate course.
Yeah.
Technically, that's part of the education to changing your career.
Technically.
But really, any of it, what education maybe should or shouldn't it be, and when should it be?
Real estate specific or entrepreneur specific?
Entrepreneur. Let's look at it through that lens, and it could be a realtor.
I think it's specific to each individual. I think people learn differently. I do not learn from reading. I learn from doing things. I learn from listening to real life experiences. I feel like books are filtered to appeal to a specific audience. So I really enjoy the podcast platform. I have a few specific people that I listen to often that I get a lot out of the conversations that they have with their guests, and most of them are entrepreneur business type people. And I get a lot out of being in those situations myself. So my podcast has been awesome for me personally and mentally. But I think it's it's finding the medium, the platform that you feel like you can pull information out of.
Who are your favorite podcasters?
Number one, Zero to Here, Denny Dumas. No.
Okay.
Number one is Gary Vee for sure.
Yeah.
Number two is probably Tim Ferriss. I listen to a little bit of Joe Rogan, but I'm kind of hit and miss with.
But he's
with
crazy
Joe Rogan.
sometimes.
He is, yeah. But it's really those two. Between they both, Tim Ferriss and Gary Vee, both put out so much content that if you have an hour and a half or 2 hours a day while you're working out or in the car, I'm barely getting through those two. So
you're taking
haven't
it
really
enough.
explored.
I have to take
enough.
Gary Vee breaks. I love Gary
don't.
Vee,
I don't.
but I'll get to the point where I'm like, because I'm a podcast junkie. I've got like 15 of them that I listen to, and if I only listen to Gary Vee, I never get to the others. So I'll stack up a bunch.
He does a
I'll
ton of
listen to a
content.
bunch, and then I'll take a little break, get through all my other playlists, and then come back. But yeah, I mean that every single day he posts.
Every day he
much.
posts.
Yeah, it's so much content.
That's one of my goals, though.
Every
is to
day?
post every day.
Yeah.
Right now, it's 3 times a week.
Yeah.
And I think that's achievable for the next year, but I'm starting to see where I can tape more parts of my life that can be valuable to people. So our realtor meetings every Tuesday morning. Jamie and I just did a couple of vlogs at our office before I came over here. And so just taping the behind the scenes and seeing all the little extras that we do that a lot of people in our industry do not do.
Yeah.
That maybe are part of the reason that we're setting ourselves apart.
Okay. Without giving away the secret sauce, what's something you guys do?
I will answer any question. We have zero secrets. I'm happy to help wherever I can.
So what is something you think, what's a little extra that you guys do that you think most people don't?
I think we are much better online and on social media than most in our industry. So
I think it'd be pretty hard to argue with that.
Yeah. But at the same time, I feel like we have so much room to grow.
Sure.
Within those platforms. Our website is awesome, and I'd say internet leads for us is probably 30% of our business.
Really?
Just from people finding our website.
Because of your social media presence, when you get those internet leads, would you consider those cold leads, or are they warmer than what a lot of typical
really
website?
solid.
Yeah.
So, and it's really cool in the last couple of years. It was not like this at the beginning of my career, but in the last year and a half, 2 years, going into listing appointments or meeting people for the first time, often people are stopping us from selling ourselves when we walk into a home. and they're saying, like, we follow your social media, we know who you guys are, we love your personalities, we watch your business. Tell us what our home is worth and where to sign, kind of thing. And so it's pretty cool going from like a newbie that is like over the top trying to sell everything that we do, talking about social media, blah, blah, blah. And people now are just aware of it, especially locally in our dominant market of New Est.
You're not having to explain why it's important.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay. I did ask a question about education.
I feel like we answered it. Podcasts.
Podcasts. So Denny's answer is clear. You want to learn through experience or other people's experiences, right? What about anybody else though who's thinking, okay, you have to take the real estate course, or you have to. I keep using my example of an electrician. They have to go through their education to have the skills to be an electrician. But what about when it's time to open the business?
So I will come back to your education question because I have a different thought than Denny. I am a book learner. Like I totally learn through reading. I love podcasts, but I find podcasts keep me motivated. If I want to actually learn something, I need to see it on a paper, and I'm usually doing something when I'm listening to podcasts, so I'm not taking notes. I think there's so much good work out there for people who want to get into business for themselves. I mean, the absolute classic 7 Habits of Highly Successful People is very dated, but still very amazing.
Strong foundation.
Oh yeah, totally. And then from there, there's so many options. The best book, it's by Josh Waitzkin, and it's I'm going to double check after, but I think it's The Art of Learning. And Josh Waitzkin was this chess prodigy. The movie Searching for Bobby Fischer was about him. And then the movie came out and he couldn't play chess anymore because when he'd go and play, everybody would just swarm him because he was this child chess prodigy. And so he decided he hated chess and he just became one of the world's best martial artists. He won at, I'd never even heard of this thing, Chinese push hands, I think is the name of the martial arts, but he just literally decided, I'm going to be the best at this thing. And his book isn't about any one thing. It's just about his system for, I want to learn something new. How am I going to become the best in the world at it? And it's amazing. And the audiobook is really good too, actually, because it was produced by Tim Ferriss. Okay. And Tim Ferriss has a whole bunch of like extra material he stuck into the into the audiobook because they're like really good buddies. But I don't know, for me, reading is the real estate course taught me nothing about selling real estate. I don't use a single thing I learned in the real estate course. What I learned about running a business, I learned from the mentors in my life, my dad and some of the other guys in the office, and through just an absolute hunger to consume knowledge. And for me, reading is the way I go about that.
Well, I think we've gone through education, other things to give us a sense of how people can consider making a shift in their personal or professional life. Any last thoughts from you, Denny, where we didn't touch on anything that you had in mind that you wanted to put on the table here?
In making a shift, go all in. For me, it was very eye-opening to feel this freedom of I can be myself in an industry that I love. And so finding something that excites you and going all in on it.
Nice. Well, we got one more question for you, Denny, so hang on.
Check out the big brain on Brad.
How's it working out for you? What? Being clever?
Who knows where thoughts come from? They just appear.
You're listening to Multiple Offers, a real estate show.
Okay, Denny, so this question comes from one of our listeners. His name is Jason, and he is a realtor.
What's up, Jason?
So Jason wants to know, he follows you on social media.
Okay.
He also is very aware that you are a high-producing realtor.
Okay.
And you've established a little bit about this, but Jason wants to know, he sees you doing a lot of fun stuff, golfing, hiking, going to football games. He also knows that you are producing results. How do you manage to do all of these things at the level you're doing it at? Because he feels like there isn't as much time in the day as just what he sees from just the social stuff.
Fair enough. Surround yourself with good people. So it was not like that early in my career. So it takes a long time to build to a level where you have a little bit more freedom.
Right.
And with our team in particular, our back-end systems, we've spent so much time and energy and money on that now they're kind of running themselves. So our website, our social media platforms are us that we're doing it all on. But I feel like you can free up a lot of your time once you have all those systems in place. So we've got some great people around us. We have great assistants. We have a few awesome realtors on our team now that are taking some of the client interaction, the stuff that is very time consuming off of our plate. And now James and I can focus more on overall business development and growth. He's awesome at the online stuff, building the website, SEO, creating content is very, very important for us long term, and I think that's going to continually help our business grow. So for me specifically, my role on our team now is more of a leadership role. I still work with a lot of clients. Like this year, I'll probably do 50 to 60 deals by myself, whereas the last couple of years it was 100 plus. And so cutting that in half, but focusing on some other things has freed up a little bit more time. But I'd say early on, it's all in every day. And it's maybe now just starting to show that.
Right.
And because I'm so public with who I am and my personality, I think other people get to the freedom that I am now starting to just see within myself.
Right.
But maybe I'm more public about it.
Okay. What does a typical day, like from the time you wake up till bed, what does a typical day look like?
You know, every day is completely
yeah,
different.
sure. But if you were going to take
say a generic day,
a generic real estate day,
what time of year?
Let's say it's April.
Okay.
Busy time.
The reason I ask about what time of year is because our business is very cyclical. We have 6 to 8 months of insanity, where we probably do 70% of our business in that 6 months. So April is usually I wake up pretty early, like 5:45, 6 o'clock, go for a run and workout.
Yeah.
Then I'm on the computer, emails at home, writing contracts, reading strata documents, all that kind of stuff in the morning. And then appointments start early afternoon, usually for me.
Yeah.
And on a regular April day, I might have appointments till 8 or 9 o'clock. Home.
Yeah.
Quick bite to eat. And often you're back on the computer till midnight reading strata documents again, sending contracts, whatever. But those spring, let's say 4 or 5 months in spring, they're long work days.
Okay.
This time of year, obviously my social media maybe is a little bit more exciting.
A little more social.
Outside of real estate, and that's just because of the time of year.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's our question of the week. We're just going to kind of outro us here and wrap us up. But I did want to mention for our listeners who are taking this in one more time, there's your show. And maybe you had asked for the audio for this, so you might have some segments on your show.
I believe in creating content as much as possible. And it's not so much creating, but more just documenting. So I would love to use this on my show.
All right, so we're just going to be just totally just crossing streams here.
Why not?
Yeah.
Help each other out.
Sounds good to me.
The Ghostbusters were wrong.
Probably should have introed with that. Welcome to Multiple Offers on Denny's channel, 0 to here.
Well, why don't we get into that stuff real quick? So, Denny, thank you very much for joining us. It was great having you. If you're hearing Denny on our show, you can find Denny at 0 to here. Denny, you are on iTunes, Spotify. Are there any other channels?
Basically anywhere you listen to podcasts, Google Play as well.
Anywhere you listen to podcasts. And if you've been listening to 0 to here and you want to get more multiple offers, you can find us at morealestateshow.com or just throw multiple offers into iTunes or Google Play. If you want to get a hold of Denny, what's the best way for people to get in touch?
Instagram's the easiest, denny.dumas, or you can, my website is dennydumas.com. Our real estate website, garbettdumas.ca.
You'll be in the show notes, don't worry.
Yeah. I'm very visible.
You're very easy to find. Awesome. And if you guys have questions for Matt or Jer, they are at thenewwestguys.com. If you have questions for me, Jeff, I am at realestatennewwest.com. If you guys have been enjoying this, please think about leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes. It helps us get out to more people. And thank you very much.
Thanks again for coming on, Denny.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
Cheers.
So, Denny, you're a whiskey guy.
I would say that, yeah.
How did you become a whiskey guy?
Those first 2 years in real estate.
Oh, God. No, that was a lot of beer. I didn't have enough money for whiskey at that point. That's a great question. I don't know. A year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I decided that I had seen successful people on TV. Seriously,
like that Don Draper sure knows how to drink.
Yeah, that was part of it. Suits was part of it too. I super idolized Harvey Specter. Okay, yeah, and he always had whiskey in his hand in his office. And so I just started trying a bunch and kind of fell in love with it. And I'm going back and forth. Irish whiskeys are super undervalued in my opinion, comparatively to Scotch. Scotch just has this big name like Nike.
Sure,
although they're just whiskeys made in different countries. And there's some phenomenal Irish whiskeys that you can get for like $40, $50 a bottle, whereas the good Scotches usually are $100 or more.
Yeah. A guy in our office turned me on to Oban.
Yep.
And it's amazing. But yeah, you're spending over $100 for a bottle. Jer's a big bourbon guy.
And bourbon's even more underrated.
Yeah.
But more expensive than Irish whiskey.
Is it? Yeah.
Well, a good bourbon's probably like $70 or $80.
Different, yeah, a little different makeup.
Yeah.
But whereas, I don't know, Scotch and Irish whiskey, I don't know if I'd be able to tell the difference. I doubt there's even a difference. Hey, Jeff?
Are you still a whiskey guy?
I like Scotch. But any of the, like, I'm a big rye fan.
They're all good with a
Jared
can
turned
of
me on to bourbon.
Can of Diet Coke and some fine Scotch. It all works.
I had a nice bottle of Scotch. I don't think I've told this story on the show, that I brought on the boat with my family. I'd been saving it for a nice occasion, and we were at Wigwam and went to sleep on the old hotel there, and I came back in the morning, and the whole bottle was empty. And my brother and some of his friends invited some girls onto the boat and just downed the whole thing. I was like, well, did you enjoy it at least? He's like, yeah, it was amazing with Coke. I was so mad.
Come on,
that
man.
was boat whiskey.
Yeah, it was frustrating. So you've got like is it a whiskey tasting? I see posts online of you've got like a group of guys who have a whiskey night. Is there like a regularity to that, or
we
how
do
does
it
that
once
work?
a month, usually the first Wednesday of every month.
Yeah.
There's anywhere from like 8 to 14 guys that show up, and it really just started with me wanting to, again, going back to the way that I learn best is just like communicating with people, talking about their experiences. Other self-employed people are the best for that for me. And so just starting a group of like, I have 4 or 5 friends that are self-employed, a mortgage broker, another realtor, and just each of us bring like a buddy or two every time that are other self-employed people, and we bring a few bottles of Scotch and just kind of chat.
Nice. How did Jer and I come to this whiskey club?
I'll give you the invite in December.
I left Matt out. Are you still on your no drinking?
Yeah, it's not really my thing right now.
Yeah, Matt's taking a little break.
Fair enough.
You should see him when he does decide to drink.
It's why I don't drink anymore.
For every guest I have on my podcast, I bring a bottle of whiskey.
Yeah.
And some of them will have like 1 or 2 drinks, and
Yeah.
that's it. But the guy last night, he went hard, and we finished the whole bottle in an hour and a half.
Oh.
It was an aggressive.
Holy.
It was an aggressive night.
It's like when you take a client out to dinner and they order a bottle or something, and you're like, oh, that's what
One
we're
of
doing?
those nights.
All right. Well, this was a really enjoyable segment for me, guys. Thanks.